How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Parents versus Gaming. It is July 18th. I had to look at the date. This is episode 17, and we've got a couple of special guests. We're going to talk everything Xbox. I know we talked about it at the end of last week's episode. We kind of dug into it a little bit. We didn't mean to, and I promised some of the viewers, especially Gump if he's back, and a few of the others, that we would get into kind of everything that they're doing, whether it's All Access, the Game Pass, the Family app that just got a huge update this week. So we'll jump into that. We've also got a special guest to kind of jump into the video game addiction side of things. So let me go around the room and introduce everybody. Right next to me, the always beautiful, gorgeous, from Idaho, one of the coaches of the Idaho Horsemen. We've got Mr. Jay Noller, U.S. Barber himself.
Thank you. First of all, I knew exactly who you were talking about as soon as you said beautiful, wonderful, amazing. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. Back at you, babe.
Right next to Jay, we've got, once again, joining us, kind of our video game expert, plays too long, plays everything, loves the grind in every game possible. All over Warframe right now, Master of Shadows, Mr. Taylor Brown.
How's it going?
And all the way on the end, our special guest jumping into the video game addiction side of things, Miss Melena Ornelas.
Hello.
All right, so here we are. Again, like we do every week, if you guys have any questions in the chat, jump in. We'll interact with you live. Don't forget, this is on all podcast platforms that you can listen to it later, or if you miss an episode. Also, we are part of Last Choice Network, which is starting to kick off a lot on YouTube. So you guys can look at a lot of content on there. We're doing a couple of Let's Plays. I know Master Shadows and I are playing through all of A Way Out. I know it's an old game, but we had a really good time playing through it. So we're excited for anyone who wants to watch and kind of see that game. It was a great game a couple years ago. It came out by Hazelight and Joseph Ferris. And then they followed that up with a It Takes Two. And then they also, before that, they had I believe it was A Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which was a super popular mobile game. So if you guys enjoy those kind of things, I would love for you guys to stop by and check us out. But let's kind of dive into this. I want to start with the video game addiction side of things. And then we'll jump into the Xbox stuff a little bit more lighthearted. So we've brought Melena on. And Melena, one of our biggest topics is the constant battle on whether or not people find video game addiction, how to deal with it, especially the parents and their kids. A lot of parents that don't understand gaming, they're afraid to let their kids play games at all. We talk about that on here all the time. Or they don't know how to control the moderation, or just because a kid acts out when they take it away, they think that, okay, my kid's addicted to video games, life is over, I've ruined their life, they're never going to become anything. But there is that fine line, of course, that people do seem to lean on video games, or they get depressed, and a lot of people find that. So can you kind of jump in and just give us a little bit of, from your side of things, your professional opinion and what that is, and also kind of introduce yourself a little bit, your credentials and everything that you kind of come from?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So my name is Melena. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have a private practice here in North Texas. I specialize in working with adults with childhood trauma, and adult children of alcoholics, and adults with alcoholism and substance abuse as well. And so to answer your, I don't know which question to answer, but so, wait, what did you ask?
You can just kind of jump right in and kind of set the groundwork. So for us, obviously, we're not licensed professionals. We can only go off of an article we may read or things like that, or just, the constant battle of trying to argue the fact that it isn't this bad thing to let your kids play video games. So we just want to be able to show both sides of it. If there is an addiction, is it a real thing? How does that go?
Yeah. So it only becomes a real, the thing is that it does all addictions in a nutshell start with an unhealthy pattern, and or start with a pattern that can become unhealthy, and then can cross into the threshold of actually being an addiction. And so a couple of things have to be present for that to happen. And the main thing is that it's like somehow interfering with daily functioning. So if it's a kid, then that's their academics, their social life, those kind of things. Like something is interfering with that. And if it's an adult, then it's, like their family time or work life, that kind of thing. So it has to be, in order for it to be, so it develops from an unhealthy preoccupation with a behavior. And so in this case, what we're talking about, gaming, but it can be anything. So and the unhealthy preoccupation is kind of what designates it and makes it an addiction. And that's addiction in a nutshell, whether it's a process like a behavioral addiction or whether it's an addiction to a substance. So if the preoccupation becomes so great that we abandon our other responsibilities, like I said, like family or school or whatever activities, that's when it's in danger. They were like the person's in danger of like becoming addicted, like truly addicted. But so if somebody were to be like gaming like 8 hours a day, but they were still taking care of the other stuff, then that wouldn't necessarily fall into the category of that because there's no impairment to the functioning because they're taking care of the other stuff. But I would definitely say that something like that would be something to keep an eye on, for sure.
Jay, do you have any questions for Melena? I know we've kind of glossed over this, but I would love to dive into it a little bit more here.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on here and hanging out with a couple of chuckleheads who really don't do anything and are just kind of winging this right now. So I appreciate having a professional and an expert come on here. The second part is I need you to say the part about being able to play video games for 8 hours a day and it being okay. So I can take that and put it into a clip for my wife. And then that way, anytime she asks me what I'm doing, I can just be like, well, I had an expert. And she said I can play for 8 hours a day. So, but I think that kind of gets into what James and I have talked about before is, it's all fine and great until, it starts interfering with your life. You start pushing those loved ones away.
Yep.
James has gone for weeks without showering before. We've all seen it. We've had to talk to him about it.
Hygiene
It's gotten bad. Yeah. Hygiene's a big thing. And I think, that pops up a lot in Comic-Cons. I think the no deodorant hygiene issue pops up a lot too. But what my concern's always been, so I have a pretty, I've never been clinically diagnosed with it, but a pretty addictive personality. And so I've always got to be very careful whenever I do get into something, because when I like something, I really, really like it. And I really kind of have that experience where I just kind of go right down that rabbit hole. Is video gaming, in your opinion, something that is one of those things that we need to be very cognizant of with kids because it's an easy substitute for one addiction going right into gaming?
I mean, I would say that it's definitely a possibility. When you talk about having an addictive personality, so really what we're talking about, the elements that have to exist for that to like the potentials are that mental obsession, like what we're talking about. Like all I can think about is when can I do it next, and like, so whenever that happens, when I have the mental obsession, then I start to lie and I start to, like either minimize what I'm doing, minimize the amount of like time I'm doing it, or make up an excuse for why I can't do something that I would normally be doing. So the mental obsession is the first thing. And then the other part is like the physical part, which it's interesting because there's some research. So all of this, by the way, is still like under research. So according to the diagnostic manual that we use to diagnose people, it's not in there. It's not recognized as a diagnosable like gaming addiction or anything like that. So right now, the only
it doesn't exist.
So you're saying that video game addiction is not a real thing?
Well, it's not recognized in America, in the American Psychiatric Manual, the diagnostic manual that we use to diagnose and treat. It's not recognized there.
With it not being recognized, I know Jay and I are kind of joking, saying, well, it's not real, problem solved. But a lot of people do believe it's real. So like you're kind of saying that it can kind of be real. With that being said, since it's not recognized, does that affect anything? The way you can do treatment, the way you can help someone?
It's very much like mirrors. The only thing that is in there is gambling addiction. And it's very similar to it. It really there's so much that's like, so that's why, to answer your question, Jay, yes, because there's so many elements that are there. That's why so I don't really treat this, normally, but I am substance use and alcoholism is my specialty. So when I was doing like light research in it, these process and behavior addictions are very similar to substances. But I mean, there's like unique things about them as well, but they're very similar. So it's not that it isn't real. And also it's been placed in a category of things that need to be researched, that they just need more time to look at. And the most recent diagnostic, the most recent DSM that we use is from 2013. So it hasn't been updated in, 8 years now. But it is definitely being researched. And the World Health Organization has also researched it, and they created an ICD-9 code, which is what we use to bill. So they've created something. And I know they have treatment centers in South Korea and China. So like they're recognizing that people are not thriving in their communities because of gaming. So it's not that it's not real.
Those fucking EA loot crates, man. It's those loot boxes, dude. It's over. But actually, you brought up a really good point, and I say that jokingly. So for those folks that are listening, that are gamers, they know exactly what I'm referencing. But I think it goes back to like the whole European Union and kind of what they said is once you start to create a game that has that gambling element in it,
yes,
for a person
exactly.
with an addictive personality towards gambling, or in my case, just obsession, that's what you kind of anchor onto inside that game.
Yes.
And it's not the game anymore. It's really that gambling part of your lizard brain that's kind of taking over and causing the problems.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I was gonna say, let's jump in with Taylor real quick because he's laughing. If there's one person in our group that is big into the grind games, we're talking. He plays games where to get anywhere in those games, Melena, you're putting in an average of 5 to 8 hours a day. Whether it's an MMO type game, I know he's big into Warframe, Destiny, it was Diablo as well. These games are huge grind games if you want to progress in these kind of games. These games are set up for someone to dump, 800 hours in a short amount of time. Taylor, do you feel like you would say that you have an addiction, or is just this your... How would you self-assess yourself on this?
Some of it I would say would probably be a little bit of addiction. Not gonna, because I do spend quite a bit of time playing these games and spend a healthy amount of money in some of these games, which would lead to the gambling addiction. Like when they had the little the Ingram things you could buy from Tess, trying to get things up. Cosmetics you wanted out of. On top of that, I really, it's something where, like the grind games though, I like being able to sit down and have friends where I can talk to, and you just mindlessly do something while you're actually engaging with other people. Because a lot of the times I'm playing these, I'm either talking to you, James, or Quick, or Ty, or somebody. I'm actively engaging with somebody else, and we're not even talking about the game. We'll be talking about what's going on in each other's lives. Yeah. So it is.
And that brings up a good point, which I kind of want to bring to you, Melena, is, you'll get, especially for you, being what you do, you'll have, you could possibly have parents reach out to you to help their kids maybe, right? So, and they're going to tell you, they're completely addicted. They have no social life. They're not into it. But as you start to talk to this kid, you might get kind of responses like Taylor's saying, where they have a huge social life and a community, but they're just because their parents don't see it physically and they don't like gaming, they don't understand gaming. How do you convey that to a parent to help them understand that, hey, your kid does have a social life. This is the thing they enjoy doing. Maybe they don't want to play t-ball, or they don't want to be on a baseball team. It doesn't mean that they're not engaging in stuff. And I'm not saying don't have your, we talk about this all the time, moderation. Don't keep your kid from having physical activity. I'm not trying to prevent that, but I'm just saying, can you come back at the parent and say, look, your kid has a social life, you just don't see it?
It's a little bit of a slippery slope, because a social life online versus in real life is totally different. I mean, the skills that are used for that they're different. So that's a little bit of, I don't know, like I feel like so much of what we're talking about right now, like especially with Taylor too, is more like tailored to the person. And just like, I mean, that's everything all the time anyway. It's only a problem, I mean, literally by definition, if it's impairing your functioning. So if it's not impairing functioning, it is not a problem. I mean, by definition, it's not that's not disordered. It's not disordered gameplay, if it's not impairing that. So it's like, but there's those but again, if it's excessive, and if it's like there's a whole list of things, and you have to like meet 5 out of like 10 of the criteria for 1 year to like in the gambling one, like that's and a lot of the stuff in the DSM, it's like you've got to meet like an X number of things, and some of those is lying, and some of those is like like if you use, I mean, it's a lot of the same, like escape, like if I'm using it to feel better, like I don't want to feel a certain emotion, and I'm trying to, like, I'm feeling sad or feeling angry, and I'm going to game like it to cover up that emotion and not process that. I mean, there's other problems that can come from that don't necessarily have to do with the gaming, like that's not gaming disordered, related. But so I think in terms of like communication with parents, I think it's really important, to look at if they're feeling like there's a problem, and if they're deciding, if they're looking at it and they're thinking, I think this might be an issue for any number of reasons, whatever it might be. I think it's really important to find the root cause of what's lacking for that kiddo, or I mean, even adult, really, what's missing that we're getting it from this. So that might cause a problem, where the patterns might cause a problem. And is there an issue that maybe sparked this, or like that sparked an obsession that's like out of the ordinary, like, so not like you, Jay, who's just looking for your next obsession. But I mean, is there something that's going on? Just like really like non-judgment, like promoting open communication, educating parents on that, I think is so important. And also, and I know you guys talk about this a lot around here too, but like modeling, I mean, what we do as parents is so important. What's the culture in your family? Like, is this important, or is this not that kind of modeling? But good job. You could definitely.
I was ready for my close-up.
For those listening on the audio version on the podcast later, on the video version, Jay is over there trying to put on his best modeling act.
He's voguing. He is voguing. Anyways, yeah. What's happening at home? I mean, that's like the most important thing. And just sitting around and having a conversation. Sit down for dinner and bring some of these things up.
Now, we had a previous episode where we talk about, can video game help depression, especially with kids. Now, for me, you kind of mentioned it, where you turn video gaming into an escape. Anytime I've really had some self-depression in my life, or just things that I couldn't handle dealing with, whether it's Taylor or Jay or some other people that I game with that are my personal friends, gaming has been my escape. It is something that keeps me from going down a dark path. So is that necessarily a bad thing, or is it, again, does it come back to moderation?
It always comes back to moderation, for sure. So that's fine. So there's different types of coping skills and strategies that are to be used at different times. So something that you're talking about right now would be like to keep you safe and happy and whatever in the moment. But as a long-term thing, no, that's not good. I mean, anything that we do to stuff our feelings and emotions, if we don't take them back out and look at them or process them, they don't go nowhere. I mean, they stay within us, and they grow. Whatever we plant, it grows. So it's fine for like in the moment, to like I said, like if the alternative to that is something that's self-harming, then of course that is absolutely fine. But yeah, not for a long term. Yeah.
No, I do have some questions from chat. I don't want to dismiss them over here. I've got Lone Wolf at one point said Destiny, which is a game for those listening. Very popular game. Destiny became a weekly checklist for my wife and I. We gamed like crazy, and it took over our lives. Again, Melena, that goes back to kind of the games I was talking about that Taylor is very well known for playing. They're big grind games, and they do sometimes kind of have this like checklist feel. You've got this like things you need to do in the game every week, but does it affect your actual life? No, but it is that feel-good feeling that you've finished that for that week. So I don't know if that jumps into is that something that you think games are doing to make you be addicted to them, or is it just that's just something that makes you feel good for finishing that weekly task?
And that article that you sent had talked a little bit about that, about how like, and I know Jay touched a little bit on it too, about how like some of those video game whatever designers, I don't know what to call it, but they like put it in there, those things that are like that are very similar to like what sucks in a gambler and keeps them going and keeps them motivating. And the other part too is that like they make it, I think if I'm remembering the article, I don't want to like misquote it, but something like hard enough that it's challenging, but easy enough that the rewards are there and they're coming. And then also that there's never an end, or it feels like there's never an end. I think those are like the elements that they were talking about, that it's very similar to gambling, because potentially there's never an end, right? Once you get going, you can go forever. But then it's like I'm winning some, I'm losing some, but it's like that keeps that part of our lizard brain, like Jay talked about, engaged and fired up.
And for those on video, you can clearly see that Master Shadows Taylor over there is kind of laughing to himself, because you are hitting, without even being a gamer yourself, Melena, you are hitting all the key aspects of what the games that he looks for. The games that are successful in his genre of playing, only the ones that are able to hit those key points are the ones that keep the audience. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's almost like you're saying when it comes to an addiction or being too involved in something, these video game companies almost have to ride that fine line of wanting you to feel that way, but also not letting the industry fall into it's a horrible thing, the world should shut it down.
Unless it's something like Dark Souls, and then it just tries to rip it out of you piece by piece. There is no easy way to that. If you accomplish anything in that game, you've accomplished something.
That's a good point. Now, I've got another question here for you, Melena. It says, it's from Lone Wolf as well. It says, what about kids and adults who use gaming to escape from reality, to so-called check out?
Yeah, again, same thing. I mean, everything in moderation for sure. I mean, but what are we checking out from? I mean, that would be my question. I mean, is there something that potentially needs to be addressed, like in therapy or through journaling, or, is there some feeling that we're not processing and we're stuffing that's going to blow up in our face later? And time will tell on that. I mean, to be honest,
so
I hate to be such a wet blanket, but I mean,
so before
out.
we move on to the Xbox side of things, and I want to keep you around here, Melena, because being a parent, Jay, you have a question. Go ahead.
I do have a question. Sorry, I didn't want to step on you. Okay, so we've talked about what to look for, James and his poor hygiene habits. So let's theoretically come up with something here. So James is normally my bitch, but in this particular example, we're going to use him as my teenage son. So as a parent, I see him get involved with a game, and I see him start to kind of exhibit those signs that you're talking about. Like, I know he's supposed to go out with his buddies. They go out every Friday night. All of a sudden, he starts skipping them. I walk by the theater room or the TV, and, dude, what's going on? I thought you were going out with the boys. I decided to stay in. And then he's playing video games. And then I start to see, like, dude, did you get your chores done? Did you mentioned academics is a big indicator usually for, school-age children and stuff. And he's starting to kind of check those boxes off. Now, I guess now that I've identified the problem, here's the tough part, because you're kind of the solution. James is my problem. How do I get that bridge, and how do I bring somebody? How do I start that conversation? Because I'm struggling to ask my question properly. How do I have that conversation? Do I sit down with James and be like, dude, what the hell's going on? Or do I just like take him to your office and drop him off and be like, yo, fix him?
Well, you can do either one. No, I would definitely say that it depends on, it depends on the family. It depends on the culture. I would 100% start by, again, modeling it at home, like checking yourself for sure, because there's so many times that somebody get like the exact same thing you just described. I'm dropping off my kid and here's the problem. And then within like 10 minutes of talking to the kid, the parents are doing the same thing that they're bringing, So, it's like, first of all, clean up your side of the street. That's just my personal opinion. Clean up your side of the street. And then, just I mean, have some kind of conversation, however you guys would do, maybe driving in the car. That's usually like a, kind of easier way to talk to kids, and especially teenagers, because you're not having that pressure of looking at each other. But, a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding, a lot of communication, a lot of curiosity. Stay curious about what's going on, because there's probably something else happening. Honestly, I mean, there's probably something else that you're gonna hopefully find that really doesn't have a lot to do with the gaming. And maybe there's some kid somebody that's bullying him, or maybe he doesn't want to do that sport anymore. Or maybe he's interested in this and not that, but he didn't know he'd tell you. I mean, I would venture to say that there's probably something else happening that has nothing to do with this. So I would definitely create the space for that the best way you know how.
Yeah, I could definitely see James being bullied and then not making the soccer team. So that would really probably set him up. So no, thank you for that.
Yeah, he would game all night with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before I was gonna say, Melena, I want to keep you around because being a parent yourself, you have kids, and I know some of them do game. So I'm gonna enjoy hearing your perspective from kind of the outside as we go through the marketing strategies by Microsoft and Xbox right now, kind of what they're offering versus kind of what the other systems and consoles are offering. And as a parent, if you were tasked with going in and starting your kid out in gaming because they want to be, if Xbox is something you would see the value in compared to what the others offer, and how much money can go into as a parent when you buying game after game after game after game, that's kind of what we want to hear from you. But before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about why we have you, kind of anger with your friends in video gaming. So I was asked earlier by Melena if any of us have ever, we're really good friends, and if we argue when we're gaming. And I would love to know if you think that kind of gets into your territory on the professional sides of things, Melena. But one thing you said to me is, you can imagine of all of our group of friends, the one person that probably doesn't ever argue with anybody is Master of Shadows, Mr. Taylor Brown himself in the middle. And I told you I would let him explain the very first time a good friend of mine who named Kyle played with us. And Taylor, do you want to kind of give the story on whether or not you yell or argue in a video game?
So we're taking Kyle through his first introduction to Destiny 2's Taking King. He hadn't played with us ever, and we get into this just knockout, drag out argument, me and James do. We're yelling at each other, like actually yelling at each other. But by the end, we're both laughing, and Kyle has no idea what to do at this point in time. Because we've done it before. We get a little upset at each other, and we yell at each other. But me and James normally end up laughing at each other because we realize how stupid one another are for doing it in the first place. And Kyle's just in shock and awe, just silent, just dead silent. Doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't know how to respond to what just happened.
Yeah. I don't want to play anymore.
Lone Wolf says in the chat that friendships have been ruined from Destiny raids.
Oh yeah, we lost our entire clan, pretty much split because of a Destiny raid. Taking King raid.
I would say this, Melena. There are definitely games that you can play that will test if you are really friends with someone in a group, or you just met them online, or if someone's super sensitive, because these games get where eventually somebody has to be the leader. They just have to be. And you might be the alpha in your group in real life, but on gaming you're not very good. US Bobber. But so do you think that, I guess from a professional side of things, do you think that can be a problem, showing anger in video games with your friends, or is it really no different than kind of arguing with your friends on a basketball court or in real life? I mean, if you're truly friends with people, in my opinion, I feel like you're going to have arguments eventually. And I feel like, at least for me, the only time I really argue with anyone in video games, they're truly my friends, because I know that I can completely lose it with them, and we can say, I'm sorry, we can get back to it, and we're fine. And anyone that can't handle that was never really friends to begin with, or if if they can never yell at me as well. What is your opinion?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the yelling is way more intense than real life.
You think so?
I would
I
say
do.
it's. I would say that's because you can't really physically express yourself like you would in real life, so you just raise your voice instead.
Yeah.
No, but here's the
It's
thing,
like
though.
really loud,
Look,
really
James is
fast,
like
and really
5'1".
scary.
I'm
James is like
5'9". I'm
5'1".
5'9", first of all.
Dude,
And according
here's
to
the
Crash,
thing.
I weigh 300 pounds. So
Look, let's be realistic. He's like 5'1" and a $125. The difference is James is not raising his voice shit to me. Like, because he just, hey, really, stop. Like, he's not going to do that. So I think gaming, because he is so far away, is a great equalizer. And I laugh about it all the time. And I said it this about 14 hours ago. I said it to him because we were playing. hang on. I gotta do like a demo here. Hang on. So he dies, and he's so pissed and frustrated. All you hear is his clunk as his remote hits the thing, and I just die laughing because I've played with him long enough to know that's his like angry face. It's like you just hear clunk, and his remote hits the desk.
listen, I think it can be a good outlet, especially as we get older and we don't, we're not involved in organized sport. A lot of us are athletes. We played sports, right? Like, Jay, for you were all over the place. You played every sport I can think of, and you were, which is why we laugh so much. You've said many times you were the biggest shit talker in every sport, and we laugh that you kind of keep quiet when we play Warzone, and it's clear it's because it's almost like psychologically it seems frustrating to you because everything you've ever done in life physically, you've been able to dominate everywhere you go, but when you play Warzone, you've got a 12-year-old that just crapped all over you. And what are you going to say to them? Especially when you know for 3 seconds your death cam is going to go over to their feed.
Right, especially when they're like teabagging you and like shooting you all this extra stuff and everything else. Like, screw you, little bastard! Like, go away. Like, I will slap you. But yeah, no, it's you're absolutely right. I don't even know what the hell at this point we're doing besides sharing stories at this point. So I apologize to the trained professionals in this chat right now, but yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, like the dynamics, because James, I think you're right. Like, there has to be somebody leading, and we were talking about it when we were playing this afternoon. Speaking of obsessed much, is all of a sudden we're like playing and we're like, okay, look, we got to come up with a rule. If you pick, you are now in charge of the party as like a first sergeant until we all die and we rotate to the next person. Because we're like, what do you want to do? I don't know, bro. What do you want to do? And then somebody's like, hey, we need to leave or we're going to die. And everyone's like, well, which way do you want to go?
That's very
every
true.
Time. Every time.
All right, so as we kind of transition, we're getting more into the game. Let's jump over to Xbox. I know last week we kind of went the wrong way. I sent you guys kind of how I want to talk about specifically to start Xbox All Access, which is your way to have a subscription. It's $25 a month or $35 a month, depending if you get the Xbox Series S or the Xbox Series X. It also includes Xbox Ultimate Game Pass, which is gaming on PC, gaming on cloud for both iOS and Android now, and gaming on your Xbox, which is the Game Pass kind of Netflix subscription model, which is that subscription itself is $15 a month. So for $10 or $20 more a month, you get a console. Now, after 2 years, the console is yours. You don't have to keep, and you can opt out of the Game Pass subscription if you want. So I kind of want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I know we were kind of saying that there's interest that builds up the whole time. That is not true. The best way to look at this model is that it's just like going and getting your cell phone. For example, if I go and get my cell phone and I work out my plan and I pay $100 a month and I have the brand new iPhone, I'm not accruing interest along the way. And at the end of the, when you get to a certain point, it'll say, hey, you're eligible for an upgrade. Well, Xbox kind of did that with their Xbox One going into the Series consoles. And then you just continue your payments, or you finish it off and the phone is yours. And now your payment for your cell phone plan just goes down to whatever your monthly cell phone payment is, and you're not paying for the phone on top of it. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I know that we kind of went the wrong way. Now, there is the interest if you stop paying. Now, and that, and Jay being a lot more into the financial side of things, that's something that is anything, right? If you don't pay, it's eventually going to come back to bite you in the butt. So you do need to be careful. But if you can't drop $500 on a brand new console, and you're already going to get Game Pass for $10 or $20 more a month, you can get this console. You just have to, you set up your automatic payments however you want to do it. Knowing that, Jay, as far as a parent, and Melena as well with you, I kind of want to know your guys' take, and I know Taylor can jump in here a little bit too. But when a kid comes to you and says, hey, I want this brand new video game console and it's Christmas, and especially if you have multiple kids or whatever, and you're like, I'm not paying $500 for that. But if you could get it on $35 a month in a world today where we're almost conditioned to have monthly subscription things, is that way more enticing to you than getting $500? Melena, we'll start with you.
No, not really.
You would rather pay it up front?
I don't, kind of, yeah. Just because then I know I'm done.
But
yeah,
you're still
I don't know,
paying
kind of.
for the other subscription services, kind of what I'm
Oh, I am? Okay. Is that what I have to do?
You don't have to do it, but it is, and we'll go into that a little bit. But if you're going to get the subscription service, do you feel like paying, or do you still kind of run in the camp of you'd rather just buy the console outright?
Yeah, I'd rather just buy it, I think.
And Jay, what about you?
Okay,
and not you personally. Not you personally. But again, we talk about you being the, you're on the marketing side of things. You know that. Don't you find this side appealing to the people that cannot afford to drop the $500? It is kind of where I'm going with this. How can there be a negative? I know you were kind of on the camp of this is complete negative and they're looking for a way to scam people, but it just seems like a positive thing. Like, I don't see how there's a negative side to this.
Okay. I'm getting back in my soapbox here. When the hell out of this group did I become the voice of fucking financial reason? If you can't afford $500 for a console, don't fucking get one. Jesus! Like, I'm already having issues with this whole, Game Pass thing where, congratulations, you own nothing. And if we decide to ban you for whatever reason, we're taking our stuff and you've now got a $500 paperweight because we're not going to let you access your digital library at all. So when did I become the voice of reason? That's why you only
cheat in Activision games. They don't ban anybody permanently.
No. You just get a new account.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're fine. Well, Jay, what I'm kind of going with is just is again, not so much your personal opinion and not even it just. I'm trying to point out the fact that this has to be a win for Microsoft finding ways to get consoles into people's houses, and clearly they were 2-1 behind Sony before, right? So if they're trying to change the way people look at them, I feel like they're just giving so many different opportunities for people to obtain a console where it is on the other side, whether it's a Nintendo, a Sony, or God forbid you want to try to be a PC gamer and drop $45,000 on an actual setup. But it seems like they're just going above and beyond. Do you think by them opening up the door, this is really where I'm coming at you with, by them opening up the door to making it so much easier to access, whether it's their library, to get their console, do you think they are potentially changing the way other companies are going to have to go?
No, and the only reason why I say this is PlayStation is a very proud company. Sony is. I don't think they're going to change their business model on it. They're going to continue to say, fuck you, pay me. And they're going to want their money up front. What Xbox is doing is the same thing that Rent-A-Center and ABC Center and everything like that have kind of done is, oh, come on, buddy. It's only $35 a month. When I worked in the automotive industry and when I continue to do, those types of consulting work, one of the first things I do is when we walk in and they're discussing the car payment, is I basically slap the salespeople until they realize that they need to stop talking about the price of the car. We don't talk about the price of the car anymore. I'm going to charge you whatever the hell I want for the price of the car. How I'm going to get you is, yeah, I'm going to say, you can afford $99, right? Well, yeah, I can afford $99. Well, I can move you up to this car for $125. It's got a sunroof and some rims and a better sound system and monochromatic paint and all this other bullshit on it. But what you're not doing is you're not doing the math on it and all this payments and everything like that. Because I know you're saying, well, you're going to get Game Pass anyway. But the problem is the entry level person for $500 who can't afford $500 has no business being locked in at $35 a month payments for 2 years. Now, on the marketing side of things, these guys are going to slay it. Because people are too dumb to look at the price tag. They're they're not going to do it. I'm really interested to see what the long-term plans are with the game developers, though. Because the reason why is because they're not necessarily getting that big bump, that big $60 bump, or whatever it is, $60 plus a $20 DLC on drop or whatever it is. They're just getting a